We're told that vegetables are delicate little plants meant to be pulled out and replanted every season. But there's an entire group of vegetables that doesn't play by those rules. These veggies bulk up from woody stems and keep producing year after year, just like a peach or apple tree would. This is not just a gardening myth. Today, on Stella Eureka, we're looking at low-effort, high-nutrition vegetables that you plant once and eat forever. You don't have to buy spinach ever again. You can just buy some chaya spinach cuttings and stick them in the ground, et voila! A chaya tree can be a great addition to your garden. It is easy to grow, suffers little insect damage, and gives you good greens for several years. Just make sure to always eat them cooked, as raw leaves can be toxic. Its reliability made it the go-to famine food for the ancient Mayans. Droughts could devastate the lands and wars could disrupt the local trade, but the chaya stood in defiance. Its leaves bloomed against the ravages of time. No force, not even the violent adventures of the colonialist powers, could keep it down. The Spanish conquerors would get sick from the chaya because they ate it raw. The indigenous people, on the other hand, always boiled them in lime-treated water to get rid of their toxins. Broad chaya leaves remain a popular ingredient in Central American cuisines, and its nutritional benefits are second to none. It is rich in protein and fiber, providing vitamins A and B as well as calcium, magnesium, and iron. Home to the chaya spinach, the Yucatan cuisine was an ever-evolving tapestry, but on the distant Indus Plains, where armies once clashed, one plant stood unfazed against the tests of time. The formidable Greek phalanx of Seleucid Greeks stood ready on these same battlefields. With an empire stretching all the way to Thrace behind them, they had their eyes on a formidable foe, the Mauryan Empire. Not only was the Mauryan army one of the largest military powers of the ancient world, but it also had a strength and conditioning secret up its sleeve. Alchemical extracts that enhanced alertness, increased endurance, and reduced pain on the battlefield. The key ingredient? A miracle plant called moringa, rich in vitamins A, B6, and C, and packed with a healthy dose of iron and magnesium. High in antioxidants, nowadays doctors prescribe it to lower blood sugar levels and cholesterol. What made this plant an easy resource for military campaigns back in the day was the fact that it grew quickly and was entirely edible, branches, seeds, and oils. Historical texts show that the Seleucids could not keep up with the Mauryan warriors, who moved with the grace and fluidity characteristic of their miracle plant. The Greeks signed a peace treaty involving a marriage alliance, and 500 war elephants ceded multiple territories and turned their focus elsewhere. A few years ago, moringa arrived in the mainstream with a bang. Superfood smoothies boasted it as an ingredient, and people started growing it in their backyards. Vedic cultures recognized these benefits around 3,000 years ago, using it as a traditional medicine for fever, infections, inflammation, and more. Buddhist prescriptions from the 5th century, found in northwestern China, also describe it as a key medicinal herb. Some plants may cast a long historical shadow, but there are others that contain a wealth of nutrition in their unassuming, slender posture. What if I told you there's a leafy green that outshines ordinary spinach in both flavor and nutrition? Nicknamed the salad tree, Bele spinach carries a tangy, fruity bite that surprises first-time tasters. But what truly sets it apart is its protein content, reaching nearly 12% by dry weight, remarkably high for a vegetable. When the Methodist missionaries first reached inland Fiji in the 19th century and laid their eyes upon the neat rows of Bele in Fijian towns, they were also surprised by it, but for completely different reasons. Coming from the temperate European climate, where diets revolve around cereals, root crops, and cabbage, they initially assumed Fijians lacked proper vegetables. It did not take long for them to discover the magic of perennial, tropical leafy greens, which they recorded in their journals and archives. Most edible hibiscus species can grow up to 6 feet tall, with a substantial shrub of greens. This structure makes them intolerant of frost and wind because the top-heavy structure can easily flop over. It can be a difficult plant to grow, but if you reside in the USDA zones 8 through 11, its high dosage of vitamins A, C, and iron can easily last you the entire year. From the tropical bliss of edible hibiscus that caught Europeans off guard to something that was beloved across European society back home, here's a plant that adorned the tables of kings and farmers alike. In the 12th century, the Benedictine abbess Hildegard von Bingen described Skirret as hot and dry, a judgment rooted in the ancient theory of humors. Across Greek, Indian, Chinese, and medieval European medicine, balance of the body's humors was believed essential for health. When patients were thought to carry a cold aura, healers turned to Skirret, blending it into remedies meant to restore equilibrium and vitality. Over the past 3 centuries, modern science has moved away from the humoral model. Science has also revealed that Skirret is a source of carbohydrates, particularly sucrose and other sugars. While it may not be the most nutritionally beneficial plant in the world, it can satisfy the occasional craving. A hardy perennial, this long-lasting root vegetable can hold its own against the stormy chills of cold regions. Just as peasant dishes made use of Skirret's reliability, so did the royal cooks of the Tudor dynasty. Whether inside the iron pot hung over the open hearth or in the cauldrons behind massive stone wall kitchens, Skirrets boiled with butter and spices were a delicacy that brought communities together around a single pot. Medieval folk congregated as the sun went down to indulge their sweet tooth in unison. Now we exchange unhealthy chocolates and sugary items. But what if you could get the exact sugary goodness promised by commercial syrups and juices in your backyard without their side effects? Yacon is a traditional Andean crop that was planted along field borders so passing laborers could bite into the juicy tubers between their rigorous chores. The high-carb content rejuvenated their bodies with newfound energy. Most of these carbs are prebiotic sugars that don't spike blood glucose the same way as starches. The high water content, 70% by fresh weight, was also a source of hydration, turning this plant into the perfect portable refreshment. Walking through a yacon plantation, you might not guess that this humble tuber can reach heights of nearly 8 feet, with much of its bulk hidden underground. For centuries, it remained tucked away in the Andes, quietly sustaining communities. Long before European contact, the Nazca culture honored yacon in pottery, a testament to its deep cultural roots. From the grasslands and glaciers of the South American mountain range to the world over, yacon is now used globally for making sweetened syrups and juices. While it might not be as protein-rich as some hibiscus varieties, it has a great reputation for retaining freshness. In the 17th century, the Spanish missionary and writer Barnabé Cobo described the plant's ability to remain fresh for 20-plus days, making it incredibly useful for long voyages. While yacon roots sweeten the earth in the quiet embrace of mountains, a certain basil whispers to the heavens from low ground. Basil is considered America's favorite herb, but it wasn't always this famous. The Italian immigration of the 19th and 20th centuries brought it to the New World, but it was still restricted to Italian communities. And then, the back to the garden and gourmet food movements of the 70s and 80s sparked the mainstream interest in the Mediterranean diet. It was in the backdrop of these culinary trends that Peter Borchard established his herb nursery called Companion Plants in Athens, Ohio, where he grew, among other things, various basil species. On a fateful sunny afternoon in 1983, Borchard noticed seedlings growing between 2 parent plants, East African basil and a garden basilicum called dark opal, so he took cuttings and saved some plants. Little did he know that this hybrid crop would take the American gardening scene by storm. Known as the African blue basil, this plant has a bold, minty taste that may not be to everyone's liking. However, it nourishes the body with vital micronutrients that boost the immune system. The interesting part? It has slowly garnered a reputation as a favorite among gardeners, extending its significance beyond the dining and the kitchen. Growing up to 3 feet, this basil with purple-veined broad leaves adds a nice touch of color to gardens. Walk into any garden and its distinct aroma will instantly catch your attention. Unlike the secret whispers of yacon, this one is a crowd favorite, attracting foliage, flowers, and most importantly, pollinators. Some go as far as to call it a bee magnet. But sometimes gardens require more than fragrance. They need a patch of lush greens with a brooding presence. That's where our next entry comes in. In the hubbub of dense southern Chinese villages, a man chanced upon a distinct phenomenon. He realized that crushing the purple leaves of the local spinach produced a reddish-purple juice, visually indistinguishable from blood. So he started calling his spinach plants Hong Feng Cai, the red phoenix vegetable. Across centuries, Chinese medicinal traditions used this plant to purify blood and, hence, balance energies in the body. Today, we know this Eastern specialty by a much simpler name, the Okinawa spinach. This is an easy plant to grow, especially in the tropical climates of Central and South Florida. All you need is a handful of clippings, moist soil, and a little bit of sunlight. Its lush green and slight purple shades look breathtaking. The striking appearance fooled the British botanist into cataloging it as an ornamental plant with edible potential when they first discovered it in the late 18th century. Little did they know that Chinese and Southeast Asian communities regularly used it in stews and teas as medicine, and locals insisted that it kept the body young. Modern science proves that they were right. In addition to lower cancer risk, it contains calcium to build stronger bones, potassium to regulate fluid levels, and antioxidants to prevent diseases. Speaking of longevity, why not head to the kitchens of Africa and Asia for a plant that is so famous for its anti-aging properties that it was named after them? Guinura procumbens is another Eastern spinach with a host of healthy benefits. It contains antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and lipid-lowering properties. But it wasn't named longevity spinach for marketing purposes. Southeast Asian communities have long known about its unique gifts, so much so that the Malaysian and Indonesian people call it Sambung Nyawa, which translates to prolong life. Ridden across trade routes and carried by immigrants over centuries, this vegetable grew everywhere, from the moist climates of Southeast Asia to the harsh sandy dunes of West Africa. Europeans, however, were not aware of its existence. When colonial botanists first discovered it, they brushed it aside, just like Okinawa spinach. The selling point is quite straightforward: easy cuttings and fast regrowth. This is a long-lasting vine that prefers moist soil and a bit of shade. Young leaves are good for raw use, whereas older ones need to be cooked slightly. Traditional herbalists have long used it for both food and medicine, and researchers are now becoming increasingly interested in its nutritional makeup. It is emerging as a great natural candidate for treating diabetes, as well as lowering blood pressure and cholesterol. In parts of the Philippines, one can sometimes see a low mat of longevity leaves at the edge of rice paddies. The locals believe that the plant works as a remedy for rice aphids, but the manner of its action remains shrouded in secrecy, leading many people to call them the leaves of the gods. Our dance with the spinach cousins has taught us many practical nutritional lessons, but the role of some vegetables goes beyond the physical realm. They evoke a sacred reverence for the spiritual and the divine. When the rains have washed away the dry heat of the Indian summer, people around the country partake in a small ritual called Tulsi Viva. It is a wedding between the Tulsi plant, which is the personification of Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance and fertility, and an amla branch, which represents Vishnu, the Lord of Preservation. This ceremony marks the beginning of the wedding season. In Indian households, Tulsi, or the holy basil, is more than just a plant. It is a symbol of purity, protection, and devotion. In addition to its fragrance and ritualistic value, It features heavily in Indian cuisine, herbal teas, and oils, and science backs up its benefits. New research shows that holy basil is not only great for the immune system, but it also helps relieve stress. It supports wound healing, eases inflammation, and lowers blood sugar and cholesterol. We have covered the history of this plant in more detail in our previous episode, The History of Superfoods and Medicinal Plants from Pharaohs to Witch Trials. The Muslim Mughal Empire, Jahangir preserved the holy Hindu plant in his gardens because his court physicians recommended it for digestive troubles and fevers. Now let's fast forward to early 20th century Cuba, where innovation prevailed over preservation in the backdrop of intense economic troubles. Cuba became politically independent after the Spanish-American War of 1898. However, American firms owned more than 60% of its sugar production, and the specialized economy of agricultural exports was caught in a boom-bust cycle. The export-first, food-last approach meant that many Cubans had to maintain survival gardens for their personal needs. Whenever locals fell into hard times, the creative solutions in their backyard could save their communities from complete ruin. In these holistic gardens, the cranberry hibiscus offered a distinct advantage over chaya leaves. Instead of boiling them for safety, Cubans could eat them raw. But most importantly, the descendants of enslaved Africans were familiar with hibiscus-type plants, and hibiscus teas were a prominent part of their culture. Central and South Americans have used these plants to make teas, lemonades, and muscle relaxants for a long time. The cranberry variety has a pleasant, tarty taste, and South American dishes use the leaves in small quantities. But make sure to use them sparingly since their high acid content can easily come back to haunt you. While Spanish soldiers were avoiding cranberry hibiscus as poor people's food, they did adopt an American plant that the locals used to cure fatigue. Most lettuces grow in spring and fall, but there are some nice alternatives you can grow all year round. Talinum paniculatum is one of them. When the Spanish soldiers came marching through the coast and savannas of Cuba, Hispaniola, and Puerto Rico, they found this plant to be a great alternative to bread. Starchy, tuberous roots that could be boiled and roasted to maintain the energy levels during long and difficult journeys. For decades before their arrival, the local Taino cultures had been using it to energize their tired and jaded bodies after days of hard labor. In the 21st century, this tradition found a new home in the Philippines, where local businesses started marketing talinum smoothies for increasing stamina and reducing fatigue. Its leaves are edible, both raw and cooked, and remain edible through its flower seed stage without bitterness. Despite its nutritional value, raw fame flower should be consumed in moderation to avoid a buildup of oxalic acid, which causes kidney stones. While this perennial plant for tropical climates doesn't form thick woody trunks like full trees, its slender frame allows you to plant it anywhere in full sun with well-drained soil. While the fame flowers shimmer under the bright Cuban sun, its close cousin clings closer to earth like a lush carpet of nourishment. Imagine children gathering bundles of the water leaf on the outskirts of Lagos. The plants emerge from the horizon like a green tide swelling out of broken clay pots. At the same time, a farmer plants it in a small plot behind his cane fields in a quiet corner of the Caribbean. From the New World to Africa and back again, the history of the Surinam spinach is entwined with the transatlantic slave trade. It is native to South America and the Caribbean. By the 17th century, however, it had been naturalized in Nigeria and Ghana. In West Africa, you often find this spinach growing along humid garden edges where red earth meets trickling streams. Given its name, it's not surprising that this leaf has up to 90% water content. During rationing periods in Africa and Europe, it has been used for water storage and as a survival diet. But modern research suggests that this leaf vegetable can be more than just a last resort. It is great for bone, eye, and cognitive health. It is rich in vitamins A and C as well as iron and zinc. However, it should be avoided in high doses as the oxalic acid can accentuate kidney disorders, gout, and arthritis. While it can be eaten raw, it is recommended to harvest, dry, and cook it before consumption. While its journey across the Atlantic might have been shaky, its rise to fame has been a smooth ride. On the topic of fame, let's not forget about a vegetable that has taken American cuisine by storm. You might have gotten the memo. Kale is chock full of nutrients, but its promotion as a superfood is not just a marketing hoax. It prevents diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and skin and hair loss. European monasteries were the keepers of agricultural wisdom in the Middle Ages, and they, understandably, saw the appeal of kale. Monks used its leaves in perpetual pots, cauldrons that were never fully emptied and were used to cook soups, beans, barley, and all sorts of diverse dishes. Unlike cabbage, which needed to be replanted every year, kale grew like a living hedge and could be harvested continuously, making it perfect for distressful times. As bombers whooshed overhead and civilians cowered in underground bunkers during the Second World War, "Dig for Victory" posters lined the walls, urging British citizens to transform every patch of soil into a victory garden. These gardens became a quiet yet powerful form of resistance, and kale was one of the stars of the movement, nicknamed the never-ending cabbage for its hardy, prolific growth. We explore the full story of these gardens and how they changed the world in our dedicated Stellar Eureka episode on victory gardens. Long before that, when Europeans brought kale to East Africa in the 19th century, communities in Kenya and Tanzania gave it a similarly enduring name, the plant that never dies. Kale can be somewhat of an acquired taste, but if you like it, tree kale is an easy pick for a garden plant. There are several species of perennial kale, so pick one that suits you and make full use of its nutritional benefits. But what if I told you there is an alternative that outsells kale in Southeast Asia? In Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, it has been the quintessential kitchen garden vegetable for many years. Many go as far as to call it lazy gardener spinach. You might hear some locals call it saba as well. Even when the Dutch colonists waged war in Java, one of the largest islands in the modern-day country of Indonesia, katuk became a hardy survivor in the trenches. During the Java War of the early 19th century, supply lines had broken down and food was scarce. But the green firecrackers continued to survive in the tropical mud and heat. Smoke billowed in the air, the sound of gunfire rang across forest, and corpses littered across coastlines, a huge loss of life on the one hand and the slow crawl of nature right beside it. Native to India, Bangladesh, China, and Southeast Asia, its mature leaves have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-obesity properties. After excessive marketing as an anti-obesity plant in the 90s, the Taiwanese government banned the sale of raw katuk juice because people kept doing irreversible lung damage due to overconsumption. Katuk should always be eaten cooked, and it tastes a bit like peanut butter. But if that gentle nuttiness doesn't work for you, here's a green with a thick, commanding flavor. Despite its name, Cuban oregano is not originally from Cuba. Native to Africa and the Indian Ocean Islands, it spread by Arab, Indian, and Portuguese traders. When Europeans first discovered it around Goa in India, they were surprised by how travel-friendly it was. A single sprig could be carried by ship to establish a new colony on the other side of the world. But there was another detail that made it a fan favorite of seafarers. Sailors across the Indian Ocean and the Caribbean carried it to relieve seasickness. Thanks to phytochemicals, its leaves have a nice aroma that can be used to remedy cough, respiratory infections, and the cold. In the Caribbean folk medicine, dried Cuban oregano leaves are burned and smoked to combat asthma, coughs, and chest congestion. After reaching the New World, it became a staple of Cuban kitchens, hence the name. They used it to season beans, meats, and stews. It has great nutritional value, promoting younger-looking skin and digestive relief, as well as inhibiting viral infections, inflammation, and cancer growth. Since it is a low-maintenance plant, many people keep it as a kitchen plant for direct use. This perennial shrub persists year after year in warm environments, so you might need a bit of climate control to grow it in cooler climates. If we follow the sharp, camphor-laden smoke of Cuban oregano eastward, through kitchens and across continents, we find ourselves in the gentler company of the butterfly pea, a plant that, instead of burning your throat, cools your eyes with its calming indigo. This is the butterfly pea. You might have seen online videos of people dropping it in water and changing the color to a mysterious purple. When the European botanists first encountered the Clitoria genus, which includes the butterfly pea, they were so mesmerized by its delicate beauty that they decided to name it after the female genitalia. In the Vedic traditions of ancient India, students were told to utilize Shankapushi to cool the mind's fire, calm the nerves, and promote lucid dreams. Shankapushi is sometimes interpreted as either Convolvulus prostratus or butterfly pea, given their visual resemblance. The pea's strong purple was also used in some southeast regions to produce inks and dyes. Ceremonial manuscripts and religious imagery used this shade to convey the transition from the material to the ethereal. But the spiritual aspect of its shades fades away in European gardens, where Victorian horticulturists prized it purely as an ornamental curiosity. However, there's more to this little vine than just appearance. Both the leaves and the offshoots are not only edible, but also highly beneficial. The purple you notice is attributed to something called the anthocyanins, pigments that protect plants from UV light and contain powerful antioxidants. For the humble aesthetics of the butterfly pea, let's take flight to take a god's eye view of one of the most famous and ubiquitous plants in human history. Archaeological evidence shows that taro was first cultivated in the Solomon Islands in Oceania 20,000 to 28,000 years ago. Today, it ranks as the world's 5th most produced root and tuber crop. Its significance comes from more than yield alone. Taro thrives in diverse soils, provides reliable food security, and is both filling and nutrient-rich. Even its leaves, once cooked to remove toxins, are edible, making the plant a complete food source. When Cuba faced severe economic collapse after the fall of the Soviet Union, taro leaves entered people's personal gardens, providing an air of hope against the pangs of famine and starvation. Similarly, in the Second World War, when rice imports were cut off to parts of Micronesia and Fiji, taro leaves became a staple diet for soldiers and civilians alike. Some people also choose its foliage for landscaping. Imagine rows of taro, its silk-textured leaves standing like giant emerald umbrellas just above the ground. More than an ornamental add-on, it can also provide important shading for crops. Nurseries often plant taro simply for its leaves. If you follow the westward wind that makes taro leaves glimmer across the Mediterranean, you'll find yourself on the Egyptian floodplains, where the soft textures of Molokhia seem to spill the Nile's secrets. In the glimmering courts of medieval Cairo, people whispered about the nourishing abilities of a royal dish. It utilized the leaves of Egyptian spinach to concoct an otherworldly stew known as Molokhia. Legend states that a 10th century Egyptian king was nursed back to health from death's door by a Molokhia stew. Even the name Mulukhia translates to 4 kings. In the 11th century Fatimid, Caliph al-Hakim bi-Amir Allah banned the consumption of Molokhia for ordinary people, citing its aphrodisiac properties as harmful and distracting. When the Ottoman Turks took over Egypt in the 16th century, they banned the dish for its ties to local identity. So the revolutionaries revived the dish with vigor, turning it into a symbol of resistance and cultural pride. Ever since, it has become a staple of the Egyptian peasant diet. Out of the privileged noble houses and into the frying pan. Broths made from protein-rich Molokhia leaves feel hearty and filling, making them a good alternative in times of meat scarcity. But the main appeal came from its quick harvest. Plant a small tree and it is ready to be harvested in nearly 60 days. Isn't that a treat? In the following years, Mulukia crossed the national boundaries and was adopted by Levantine and North African cuisines. If you're looking for a nice lettuce substitute for your salad, look no further. Mulukia leaves have a fairly plain taste profile and also have little pods that can be eaten once they turn green. While Mulukia from the Nile's riverbanks slips down the throat like liquid silk, sorrel from the cooler fields up north greets you with a sharp kiss of lemon on the tongue. Not to be confused with the Caribbean drink sorrel, Rumex acetosa has been cultivated for many centuries. But its most interesting use, perhaps, comes from 14th century Germany, where the winters became long and social upheavals turned into just another Sunday. Between the sieges and closed-off trade routes, fresh greens became a rarity. And with them, so did vitamin C. Scurvy ran amok in cities and towns. Bleeding gums, fatigue, and fatalities instilled panic and fear. Caught up in snowstorms and cut off from the outside world, sorrel became the final hope of troubled populations. This plant can survive harsh winters and is rich in vitamin C, something the northern and central European people lacked at the time. So it quickly developed a reputation as a blood cleanser and the cure for scurvy. Across centuries, this plant remained a European staple due to its high nutritional value and resilience. It doesn't need fancy care, just a little bit of moist, well-drained soil and good sunlight. It has historically been used for medicinal purposes involving digestion. It has an acidic taste and is high in oxalic acid, so cooking is highly recommended. From the sour kiss of sorrel in German fields, we now head to the lush valleys of Bengal for our final plant, whose vines offer an earthly contrast to the sorrel's tang. The Malabar spinach is a perennial plant with a slimy texture like okra, native to India, Pakistan, Southeast Asia, and New Guinea. Oral traditions from Bengal and Kerala speak of families planting the spinach before the monsoon. Its vines climbed and spilled over fences like lush green curtains as the aggressive rains washed off its glossy jade leaves. It had been cultivated in Scotland by the 17th century, and its twisting vines have continued to creep across the entire globe. The Bengalis use it to thicken fish curries, Africans add it to stews with peanuts, and the Chinese use it to cool summer stews. The Chinese tradition goes back to the 14th century when imperial kitchen gardens and monastic courtyards recognized its nutritional benefits. There are two varieties. Bacella alba is green with green leaves, whereas the rubra species has red stems. The edible leaves are 93% water, 3% carbs, and 2% protein. The high water content turned these hardy plants into reliable friends in times of famine and war. But it's much more than a backup plant. It's rich in vitamins A and C, promoting immunity, vision, skin regeneration, collagen production, and wound healing. From famine foods to royal feasts, these plants have been feeding bodies and shaping cultures one leaf at a time. Vegetables that grow like trees don't just save space, they stretch time, harvest after harvest, season after season. From moringa to Malabar spinach, every time you cultivate one of these plants in your garden, you're getting both shade and produce for years to come. This is Stella Eureka, signing off.